friends, it's Carmen and I'm one of the educators at Curiodyssey. I'm here tinkering in the home lab and I wanted to share with you what I regard as one of the greatest things in science: what happens when you fail. Last night I was tinkering with a few things, and it was because my homeschool group challenged all of us to design something out of cardboard. That's the theme of our class this year. We're engineering with cardboard, and we wanted to create something with cardboard that was able to make a noise. So I'm going to share with you the steps that went into my cardboard noisemaker and what happened with it, and then ultimately how I got surprised at the outcome. So knowing what our two materials are, rubber band and box, have you figured out what the experiment's going to be yet? Take a look. So this is what I tried last night. I was thinking that this could be some sort of a noisemaker that worked like a string instrument, like a violin or a guitar, something like that, because I thought that the rubber band would work like a string and that the box would have some sort of structure, both to help funnel the sound. We have this nice opening here that would resonate, and when I plucked the string, it sounded like that. I don't know about you, but I'm a little unimpressed. It's a great percussive sound, but it wasn't quite the string instrument sound that I was searching for. So basically I made this contraption, I let it sit around. I was a little bit confused about why it wasn't working, so I went to see if I could notice some different things about rubber bands and maybe even about the box to see if I couldn't get it to work a little bit more like what I was used to hearing from an instrument with strings. Something a little bit more musical. So here is the experimenting that I tried and what the outcome looked like after my initial musical fail. Okay, investigation number 1. Was it something about the rubber band? I wondered, maybe we just got a bad batch of rubber bands. Since rubber is a product made from a tree, there's some natural variation in it, so I wondered maybe there's just something wrong with my rubber bands. But this is what I found. Can you all hear that? The plain rubber band sounds more musical than the original design that I put on the box. So what I concluded there wasn't anything wrong with my rubber band. It seems to work just fine. It makes a noise. Do you all notice the shape that it makes when I let go of it? It vibrates, and that's the sound. So I wondered why wasn't something closer to this the sound I was able to get from my cardboard string instrument. Okay, investigation part 2. Couldn't find anything unusual about the rubber bands, though they were interesting, so I figured time to observe how another string instrument works. So I noticed on this ukulele that the strings vibrate a certain way that they weren't able to on my box. Take a look. And then compare to what was happening on our Kleenex box over here. And what I realized was there was something going on right here on the sides. Try to take a look at what happens when I change the shape of the box. So here's the box without me changing anything about it, and this is what it sounds like. And then here's me making a small change with the box. Did you hear that? How the sound changed? Try it again. With no modification on the box, and then a small change. And suddenly, that's more of the sound I was looking for. And then here's the next experiment I tried. So first, I tried making a small change. I squeezed the box a little bit to let the rubber band vibrate a little bit more freely. And then the next experiment I tried was the back of the box. So I squeezed the back of the box down, and this is what it sounds like if I leave the box unsqueezed. Not so satisfying. So one thing I did was I kind of just gave this a break because I wasn't sure how to make this stay squeezed. And I wanted the noisemaker to be something that people could use easily. And like I said, the purpose was for some sort of sound effect. It wouldn't really be practical during your sound effect time, your Foley studio for your puppet show, if you had to push in the box in order to play your instrument, especially if there were more strings along the edge. The next result after I left my rubber band guitar overnight was really surprising, but I think that if I had looked a little bit more closely, or if I had even made this box myself, I would have noticed why that happened. So wait 1 minute and I'm gonna get that over here so you can check it out and see what happened after I left the rubber band guitar overnight. And here is our rubber band guitar, the one I made last night, and when I checked it this morning, so remember last night when I put it down, it was something that sounded like this. And then suddenly, I didn't do anything. And when I picked it up in the morning, it sounded like this. See if you can notice what changed about the box overnight from the pulling of the rubber bands all along the side of the box. Take a look at this angle right over here. Do you notice anything different about the shape of this cardboard box compared to the shape of this one? Compare the sides as well. So here's what the side looks like after letting the box sit overnight. Here's what one looks like that's just been prepared right now. What I noticed was that the box started to curve. So all along each of the edges here, there were small creases forming from the rubber bands pulling together on the box, and those small folds were creating a curve that allowed the string to sit up off of the box and be able to vibrate more freely and make that more musical sound that I was seeking in the first place. So there you have it, friends, going from science fail to science fun. Just goes to show you that even something that looks like a simple experiment can have some different variations in it and some up-close investigations that you can problem solve to see exactly why something's happening, how you can change it, and to help you do future investigations. So I hope this inspired you all to do a little bit of music science with recycled materials that you have at home while we're here doing science back in our at-home labs. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep on exploring. Hi everyone. everyone, I'm Carmen and I'm one of the educators at Curiodyssey. Today we're going to experiment with instruments using cardboard and a few household materials to discover more about the science of sound and how instruments and sounds work. For this instrument, you'll want to collect a bunch of cardboard tubes from around your house. Start with things like gift wrap, toilet paper tubes, paper towel rolls, anything tube shaped. Maybe even if you had a tripod come in a rectangular box, you could try that, but you basically need any long cardboard tube or cardboard shaped object to get started with this experiment. I'll show you what else you want to look for in your kitchen and surrounding areas. You'll need at least 2 other materials to get started, and then we'll have some more experimental variations where you can collect other household items. You'll need some rubber bands. Thinner ones tend to work better for this experiment because they don't crush the tube. And you'll also need some wax paper. The instrument that we're going to try to make today is called a kazoo. A kazoo is an instrument that looks a lot like a flute or a clarinet or a recorder or a similar woodwind instrument, and it has a tube that has a membrane that vibrates. It actually works pretty similarly to a drum, which has a membrane across the top that vibrates when you hit it with your hands or with a stick or other tool. In our case, our voice is going to be the percussive force that helps to vibrate the membrane. Start with a wax paper membrane for our first experiment. Tear off a piece like this that's big enough to cover the bottom of the cardboard tube. Chances are it'll be a little bit too long, so you can go ahead and fold it in half and then tear this so that you don't have too much excess on the side of the tube. Take your wax paper square and put it on the end of your tube. Try to flatten it out so there aren't too many wrinkles right here in the middle. If you crinkle it, that's fine. Smooth around the edges. You can also try tape if you don't have a rubber band, but for being able to experiment and change your design, I recommend a rubber band because you can take it on and off or tighten it and loosen it really easily. So here is our first version of the kazoo. Let's experiment with it. Did you figure out how to play your kazoo yet? They work best by humming or by talking right into the tube. Leave yourself a little bit of airspace for the air to escape around your lips. See if you can figure out how this kazoo is working. Where are the vibrations coming from and where are they going? Put your hand on the end of your membrane like this, right where the wax paper is, and try humming into your kazoo to see what you notice. What did you feel? Mine kind of seemed like it was buzzing. I could almost feel the membrane wiggling back and forth with the force from the air from my voice that I was humming into the tube. I wonder what can change this sound and how it might look different compared to what we make this membrane out of. Alright, are you ready for this? Because it's time for a little junk drawer and cabinet scavenger hunt. Right here, you might have the extra piece of your wax paper. Notice the texture, some of the properties, and overall how it works. What else in your home might be similar to this or a little bit different? What else could you use to flatten over the edge of your cardboard tube to see what different sounds we can make? Check it out around your home and come back with some different ideas. I'm going to go check out what I have in my kitchen and around my house to see what might also make a membrane for the end of our kazoo. Well, I looked around and I found 3 things that I want to experiment with to make the membrane of my kazoo. One is aluminum foil. The second one was I cut a little square from a compostable bag and a paper cupcake liner. My prediction is that the way this membrane vibrates in the air will be some measure of how well it vibrates once I attach it to the kazoo. I notice that when I blow on each of these objects, that they seem to all allow for a different amount of movement. Now, depending on the materials you chose to experiment with, you might have a different prediction and different things that you're going to test about how these membranes work. In my case, I want to test to see how the membrane moves when I hum or blow or speak into the kazoo. I'm going to attach these to my tube and try them one at a time to report back and see what happens. Well, which version of the kazoo did you like the best? Did you manage to design a test to see how you could figure out how each membrane object worked? My test was I decided that I was going to try to hum the same word, kazoo, into each kazoo and compare and contrast what it felt like, one, the vibration on my hands, and what it sounded like, which I can tell from what I heard, and also what I hear in the video, because I have a feeling they might be two different things. Oh no! So my favorite kazoo ended up being the cupcake liner kazoo. When I felt the membrane and listened to the sound and watched the movement, to me this was the one that vibrated the most evenly. I could feel the membrane moving with my fingers, and I could see it in the screen as it was wavering back and forth. What I heard was an even buzzing sound, and I thought that this one was even the easiest one to play out of the materials that I tested. I was really surprised that the compost bag pretty much didn't work at all. If I were to rank these in order of my favorite to least favorite, I would rank number 1, the best, the cupcake liner kazoo, number 2, the one with the aluminum foil, and number 3, the one with the compost bag. Now, the reason why that surprised me was because one of my predictions was about how easily the material would move in the air, and that would reflect something about what it sounded like. And these two were on the complete opposite of my scale. I noticed that the foil, when I tried to blow on it, vibrated the least, just in the wind, and that the compost bag really easily moved through the air. So I wonder why the aluminum foil would still vibrate and sound like a buzzing kazoo, whereas the compost bag wouldn't. How did your experiment turn out overall? There are lots of other variations you can try with this same instrument. For example, try different lengths of tubes. Study other wind instruments and percussion instruments as well. Do you notice that some of them have different types of openings along the tube of the instrument, and that some of them even have different types of structures inside the tube that affect how the sound bounces around before it vibrates on the membrane? You could even choose a totally different material to make your tube out of. Over the course of history, musical instruments have been made from everything from bones to wood to metal and more. People have been making music for a long time, and there's a lot of history we can learn from while we're doing this science together. So I encourage all of you to get curious, explore out there, try some instruments, have fun making some silly sounds, and keep exploring to figure out new things.